All right, well, pleasure to meet everybody here. As Paul mentioned, I got here late last night from New York, so unfortunately I missed yesterday. Caught some of the morning sessions and some really exciting conversations that are taking place that look forward to engaging the rest of today. And sustainability on the last panel, a critical topic. That was actually the focus of the last couple of days in New York when I was there, talking about global sustainability efforts that are critical to a lot of the major brand owners and obviously critical to the climate crisis and addressing that. And there's a major role that we can all play in this industry around that. I'm also excited because earlier this morning there was the first session on early innovations. I think it was the dating game and investment. I heard mentions of non-dilutive financing and SBIRs and brought me back to the story of Geno that I'm not going to share with you today, the early story as a company that we've had for about 25 years now that I founded. But the first 10 years was a company that had about $1 million in invested capital. We would go on to pull in probably about 15 SBIR programs. That and commercial partnering ultimately over 10 years built a profitable company that ended up then pivoting and evolving into the story I'm going to tell you today. And we took the medical and life science applications of the founding platform and ultimately sold that in a very nice sort of, let's say, 8-figure exit for the original shareholders and investors in that. So there was an exciting story there for the early entrepreneurs who were looking to do that. I'm happy to share more of that story. But today what I'll focus more on is what we're doing at Geno today. And when we pivoted the company, we would go on to create a company today that is one of the leaders in developing conversion technologies for fermentation to be able to make widely used chemicals, the same exact chemicals that traditionally come from fossil inputs, but making them from renewable inputs, delivering both the fermentation, the biology, the process engineering, the full know-how to be able to build world-scale facilities and to do that for everyday products so that the products are the same, but they come from a renewable starting point rather than from fossil inputs with dramatically lower carbon intensity. And I'll talk about the significance of that to the industry in a moment. So we have over the last 15 years, we pulled in probably about $300 million in equity level investments. We've complemented that with probably close to now $1 billion in infrastructure investments from third parties to build facilities around our technology. I'll show you the first technology where there's about 6 million liters or so of installed fermentation capacity that's either installed or coming online here shortly. 150,000 tons worth of product under license and either production or in builds today. So the material transition that I'll speak to is something that we see starting to unfold, but it's still early days. So the focus of decarbonizing the chemical industry is where we spend a lot of our time. And I love this chart because it highlights for you that on the energy transition, many of you are familiar with the energy transition, well apace. In fact, that was probably the primary focus of some of the discussions in Climate Week. And you hear talks about how solar, for example, a 10x reduction in cost just in the last 10 years, and how the technologies to decarbonize energy are all there. They don't need to innovate, essentially. That was the message. It's all about just deploying infrastructure to rapidly roll out at broader and broader scales. And the level and the scale of what's being done in certain cases around energy is astonishing. So when it comes to power, so generating electricity or power or energy, and when it comes to transportation, you have at-scale solutions in terms of both renewable power and electrification. And you'll continue to see that get rolled out and rolled out. The challenge in the chemical industry is very different, though. It produces hundreds, if not thousands, of different products. They all contain carbon, and you can't really rip the carbon out of that. And you got to use a lot of carbon to generate the heat and the energy to produce a lot of those products, typically through chemistry-based conversions, high temperature, high pressure, and so forth. So the challenge is, with growing demand for chemicals and materials, there's actually a growing intensity and need for carbon. So how do we address where that carbon comes from becomes the real question. And the levers that the chemical industry are using to try to address the issue right now basically are 4. So I'll call it the low-hanging fruit at the top is essentially energy efficiency. So just how do you make your processes more efficient, process intensification or simplification. Electrification and renewables from the perspective of providing the power and the energy that goes into manufacturing and producing those chemicals. right? So this is sort of your classic scope 1 and 2 emissions of manufacturing.